Trump campaign national spokesperson Katrina Pierson is in Dallas, and she joins me now. Hi, Katrina. Good to see you.
Hi, great to be here.
So let me ask you, today's primaries are certainly important. Mr. Trump is leading in much of the polling, but does he see a path to the nomination, those 1,237 delegates that he needs beyond the primaries today?
Well, absolutely. You know, we have been saying this entire time that Mr. Trump is going to receive 1,237 prior to a convention. We're very confident that we're still on that path. And as you'll note, the other two candidates in the race who've been saying that it can't happen, it's not going to happen, no one's going to get there, all of a sudden they're joining teams to try to prevent that thing they said would never happen from happening. But you know what? We're confident. We're really excited. We're going to have a great night tonight. Moving forward, it's going to be even better. Latest national poll has Mr. Trump at 50% in the polls among registered Republican voters. So we're just really excited. We really want to move on. We want to consolidate the party so that we can take the fight to Hillary Clinton in November.
Katrina, how concerned, though, are you that this Cruz-Kasich alliance might impede that strategy and impede Mr. Trump's path to the nomination? Because he's attacking it on the campaign trail at every given chance.
Well, we're not too concerned about it, but I do think it's important to continue to educate voters along the way on this process and what's been happening, particularly when you have a constitutional conservative candidate whose only pathway is to disenfranchise the voters. And I think that should be a little disturbing to a lot of people.
When you say disenfranchise the voters, how do you mean?
Meaning that the voters, like right now, you have Cruz is behind Donald Trump by 2.5 million votes. Kasich is behind Donald Trump by 5.5 million voters. If for some strange reason they force this convention where the delegates choose, particularly from a state like Georgia, for example, where Mr. Trump won 500,000 voters, if they choose someone else, that's disenfranchisement. So exposing the system along the way and pointing that out to people is very telling.
But Mr. Trump is a businessman, and he's talked many times on the campaign trail about working the system, how he knows how to work the system. What's wrong with the other candidates working the system to give them their best chance to win?
Well, there's nothing wrong with working the system. Just be honest about it. And that's what we're asking, particularly with the state of Colorado, when we saw that they changed the way they were going to do their delegate selection process just in August after the majority of the candidates were in the race. And they weren't being very honest about that. And Mr. Trump is winning despite the system, and because he has the message. And that's what's important here, too. The other two candidates, for some reason, have been fighting against Donald Trump rather than fighting for their own vision, for their own solutions. They just don't have a message that's resonating with the American voter right now. So essentially, as of today, the other two campaigns are not campaigning against Donald Trump. They're campaigning against 50% of the Republican Party electorate.
But Katrina, talking about the message to the American people, Mr. Trump mocked several times yesterday Governor Kasich's what he called disgusting eating habits. Why does Mr. Trump feel the need to go there? Why not just talk about the things that he wants to do as president?
Because when Mr. Trump is at campaign rallies, and we've been saying this all along, this is fun for him and his supporters. He loves them, they love him, and they have a great time. And you'll notice the crowd loved it. They cheered, they went wild. Mr. Trump has fun at these campaign rallies. When he is in interviews or when he gives a speech, you'll notice a more presidential tone. But when he's at the rallies, which is why he always says, what's more fun than a Trump rally? He doesn't want to be boring. He doesn't want to be monotone. He wants to be real with the American public. That's a promise he made from the very beginning.
But is it presidential to go after John Kasich in that way?
Well, I think he's having fun. I think any presidential candidate can have fun, can laugh, can joke around, and that's exactly what he's doing.
All right, let me ask you about something that Mr. Trump said earlier today when talking about Secretary Clinton. He said that she's playing the woman card. What does that mean?
Well, Hillary Clinton does play the gender card several times. She's even used it against Bernie Sanders. She will say things like the way that she speaks, and Mr. Trump even called her out the last time she tried to use it against him. And she's going to continue to do that. Look, this is a method that the left always tries to use, whether it's race or gender, because as long as they can keep people divided, they can continue to keep things the same. Mr. Trump's not going to let that happen.
But how did she, what specifically was Mr. Trump pointing to, in what example was he pointing to that she used the so-called woman card? Just because she happens to be a woman running for president?
Well, no, just when she talked about Mr. Trump being a sexist. Do you remember that? It was a few months ago. Ms. Clinton said something out on the campaign trail hitting Donald Trump about sexism. Well, he called her out on it because of her husband. You cannot play the gender card. Women have been fighting for equality for a very long time. And I'm sorry, criticism of a woman does not make you a sexist. And that's the point we're going to make.
All right, let me ask you about a tweet that Mr. Trump put out on Senator Sanders, which I thought was kind of interesting, suggesting that Senator Sanders run as a third-party candidate. This is the tweet we're putting up for our viewers. He says, Bernie Sanders has been treated terribly by the Democrats, both with delegates and otherwise. He should show them and run as an independent. What's the strategy there?
Well, I think any independent running at this point actually would help someone like a Donald Trump who does have crossover appeal, whether it's among new voters, whether it's among Democrats, or even independents for that matter. But this is something that Mr. Trump himself will remember, the famous raise your hand at the very first Republican GOP debate, simply because there is disenfranchisement in the system. It is just there, regardless of the fact of whether it's a part of the rules or not. You look at the superdelegate system on the Democratic side, no challenger stands a chance on running against the machine. It's a little bit less obvious on the Republican side, but this is definitely something that the voters are looking at.
So does Mr. Trump see himself in the same vein as Senator Sanders, as an independent, as somebody who's outside of the mainstream? Is he sort of aligning himself in that way with Senator Sanders?
Well, I think he aligns himself as someone outside the political system. Someone as a challenger makes it extremely difficult for someone to move forward. And the reason why Donald Trump has been so successful inside the system is because he does have 100% name recognition. He has been in the public eye for 4 decades, and he has money to compete. And not all challengers have that.
All right, Katrina Pierson, always good to see you. Thank you very much. Good luck today.
Great to be here. Thank you.